Alright, this is another video on the radiator. I've had a lot of people asking about as far as mounting it, how I did it. We'll just go over the mounts as far as top goes. See, it's just the factory mount that was on the radiator at the front. This is a factory radiator. Because I was in the mud all the time, it was overheating, so I had to move it. I did have to rebuild the fan motor because the factory fan motors from Yamaha are not Yamaha. They're outsourced and they are not waterproof. They do get water and mud inside of them. It was pretty bad. I had to rebuild it, get new bearings and everything. But I saved it. It's spins nice and free, no noise. It got to where it was screaming when it would kick on. It was terrible. But it's nice and clean. It's got marine grease in there. Of course, up here it doesn't get mud. You can see how clean just the fan shroud is. You see straight through it. And now I used to spray that AC stuff on it to clean it when it was in the front, and it works okay, but I never knew how dirty this radiator was until I actually pulled it out from in the front and hold it up, and you can only see through part of it because you can't really get to all of it with a pressure washer without taking it out. For the Viking, there's not anything that you can buy over the shelf to do this to your radiator. But anyways, the top mount is the factory mount. You see how these grommets fit right back on there. I'm pretty sure I put the bend in it. Just took this bracket from the front. This is the bracket you had to unbolt to take your radiator out, because just like back here in the front, it just sits, get my finger in the right spot, these little rubber grommets. There's little tabs on the bottom of the radiator, just like the top, that fit into those grommets. So what I did is I got this piece of tubing, measured the holes from the front. I'll show you that real quick. I measured these holes from the front right here. There's one and there's one, and I took those rubber grommets out, cut holes that size in that tube, and just moved them up there and had everything sit. And see, that big metal bracket was up here. You had to unbolt it to get the radiator out, and I just used that same mount. And then on the inside, yeah, we got some DS18, of course. On the inside, I just took this piece of metal and put it in the metal brake just to kind of get it to fit the contour of the roof, and that's just a little bit of support for the bracket that's for the top. Then under here, you can see all I did, I just took this seat off just so I didn't damage it in any way, and then just welded these tubes to the back of this headrest to put the radiator on. I actually put it, kind of see, it's barely leaning forward, just a hair. Some people lean them back, some people lean them forward. The reason I did that is just to try to catch all that wind coming from underneath the roof. You see that roof lip? It goes right over top. So that way I get plenty of clear, because I don't have a windshield, so all the air comes straight through, and there's nothing blocking it from getting plenty of clean air. And I haven't had any issues whatsoever since moving it. When I started overheating, I drove myself crazy going through the wiring and trying to figure out if the sensor was kicking on at the right time, the right temperature. I spent countless hours troubleshooting it, And until I took that radiator out completely, I didn't know how dirty it was. But you can see here, made the little homemade bracket, cut it to fit around that hose, and bolted it here to hold the reservoir. Actually the reservoir, you can see the other bolt there. The reservoir is actually sitting in the exact same spot as it would if it was still in the front. It's at the same angle to the radiator. Don't remember exactly where that was bolted. I'm pretty sure it was on the side of this one of these bars. It's been so long, I'm not sure which side it was. I'm pretty sure it's the same side it's on now. So yeah, it would have been the passenger side that it was bolted to, that frame that's coming up the side, and it would have been, because that bar comes up at an angle. Get where you can see both bolts there. You see how those are at an angle? I turn my screen straight. They're leaning off that way, and that's the same angle of the dangle as these bars here. See, that bar is back. It's got a slight angle on it, and that reservoir was attached to that. That's just the OCD. I mean, trying to get everything sitting just right. I did have a problem. You see that zip tie? I never had issue when I'm riding, but when you're going 80 mile an hour down the interstate, I guess it's a little more than that little bracket can handle, and this thing has actually come loose at the top, fell backwards, and was kind of dangling here. It couldn't go nowhere because it's got the hoses attached and everything. It still stayed right here in this vicinity, but it was dangling. I had to pull over an interstate and throw a zip tie on it. I just left it on there, just, you know, so it don't come off again. But and these hoses, I had a hard time finding hoses that fit the factory. It is upside down, but 7/8 inch heater hose. It's easy to find at Napa if you look for the hose that has the yellow stripe. They'll have ones with red stripes and stuff. Look for that yellow stripe. That'll be your 7/8 hose, and it actually fits all these factory fittings perfectly. And of course they have screw clamps on them, because I don't recommend keeping those little tension ones from the factory. They always leak. But I did do a whole video on how I routed this down behind the bed and everything. That black pipe you see hooked, that's actually the hard metal pipe that used to run all the way underneath to the front, and it was attached to the frame. It's a solid hard pipe, and then it had flex hose from it to the radiator, and in the back it had flex hose from it to the motor. So what I did is I took both of those pipes out, and since I already had my snorkel done, which I did a video on it, I had a lot of problems. There's a second video actually that shows all the issues I ran across doing it on a Viking. But I already had my snorkels all done, and when I did the radiator, so I had to cut that straight pipe, not only to shorten it, but to route it around all my snorkel and everything. You see, we just got back from a ride. I got mud caked in here, but you can see it right there. I got that pipe coming down. It's only got a little angle on that side. This side over here was a little more involved, and it comes right down through there. That's it right there. Of course, I just painted it black, but I had to get around the snorkel that was already there. Wasn't too big of an issue, but yeah, as far as mounting, it's pretty easy. I mean, it's a little time consuming because you really gotta you really got to factor everything in. Like, I had to get the radiator held in place temporary to try to figure out how it needed to sit, where the mount needed to be, measurements and everything. So I hope that helps. Like I said, it wasn't all that hard, just time consuming. But I just basically utilized everything on the unit that I could as far as factory mounts and everything. So any questions, hit me up in the comments. Feel free to ask any kind of questions you have about it. I did have somebody ask me if I can make them this bracket. Just if you got somebody that can weld, it's fairly simple. Just don't take but about 4 or 5 feet of pipe, not even that. You can do it with probably 2.5 feet of pipe. See, I got mine extending out a little farther past those little rubber grommets. So, I mean, if you're limited on materials, then you won't need that much. But like I said, hit me up, any questions. Later.